So 1989.
So 1989. You hate it.
I definitely expected to like it a lot more than I did.
I'm shattered inside. I'm not going to lie to you.
I feel like this, honestly, listeners, this has been the most we've disagreed probably about anything.
Yeah, anything. Not just Taylor Swift, but like
in
anything ever.
Which is how many years? Like over 10 years.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. As different of people as we are, we tend to actually agree about a lot of things. So this is interesting. I want to know your thoughts. By the way, yeah, the title of the album is 1989, and it is from the year 2014. 1989 is her birth year. That's all I have to say about the title. Okay, tell me your thoughts.
My thoughts are that, okay, so I saw from I think it was on Genius, the comments that it's supposed to be, or maybe it was in the liner notes, it's supposed to be a lot of homage to the 1980s, which is why it's called 1989. And so she's like pulling in a lot of musical influences from then and kind of the 80s rock anthems. This is her first pop album, right?
Yeah, her first like actual pop album that was Big Machine Records marketed as a pop album. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I see that like here and there in instrumentation choices. Like there's a melodica in Shake It Off, which is like, I feel like I would like it more if it was more melodica forward, actually.
Really?
But yeah, because
it gives really synthy vibes, like 1980s synthy vibe, especially, I mean, right off the bat, really, in Welcome to New York. Yeah,
for sure. So like, I appreciate that aspect. I think that's a fun idea. I don't feel about any of these songs like I do about any of the songs from the 80s. And like,
I mean, I don't know that I would say that she's expecting us to feel the way we feel about the 1980s about this album. I think she's trying to say like she was pulling inspiration from some of those times.
Okay,
you disagree about that?
No, like I accept it. It just doesn't. I
mean,
would rather be listening to the 80s. That's my problem.
So brutal. I mean, there are times I think they're so different. Like, you know, this is not Scorpion. You know, this is not Black Sabbath.
Well, yeah.
You know?
Nothing is Black Sabbath, right?
Oh my goodness. What a time to be alive.
Like, okay, so she's clearly spending a lot more energy on composition and sort of the layers of production of these songs than I feel like she spent on the lyrics in the last several albums. Like the lyrics are weaker. The melodies are much, much weaker. Most of these songs have very little melody to them. They just kind of sit on the tonic. It's more in the rhythm. Not that that's necessarily the mark of a bad song. I think there are lots of songs that have very distinctive rhythms, but there's not really much else to this album, in my opinion, with the exception of Shake It Off, which has a melody.
Right.
And
I mean, they all have melodies.
Yeah, they all have melodies.
Melodies you don't like?
No, they're just very simplistic melodies. They sit in a certain place. There's not a lot of melodic range. The other exception is I Know Places, which has
I love.
A much more complex melody.
Yeah.
And I think has much more of the reaching for a bigger image.
Yeah, and I will say I think I Know Places I appreciate it a lot more because it sticks to one theme but it elaborates on it, and it's a cute theme, you know. It's comparing them, these two lovers, to foxes who are being chased by hunters, which is, you know, it's her and Harry Styles being chased by paparazzi through New York City, which is kind of fun. We'll get to that. But I mean, okay, I would definitely agree with you that I think that it's overall more simplistic musically. Definitely. I do think that some of the lyrics are weaker, but I think what's interesting about this album is while she obviously has been telling her own story for many albums, this has felt more like an in-depth dive. I talked to one of my other friends about this who is a Swiftie also, and we agreed that it really feels like you're reading her diary instead of she's writing poetry about certain experiences and really deeply diving into poetry. It feels more raw in the emotion.
And maybe that's my problem, is that I want poetry in my songs.
And that's completely fair. I just want to say that I think that is a little bit of the draw to this. And while you may disagree that you don't like a song like that is what's happening, in my opinion.
But I think it kind of undercuts this transition to pop, where the songs are bigger. Like, again, we're thinking of 1980s anthems. Some of these like are clearly aspiring to be anthems, especially with the strong rhythmic emphasis on the tonic in a lot of these songs.
Some of them are anthems, and not in your opinion, but according to the charts.
Okay, whatever. But
some of the, you heard Shake It Off at your summer camp where you worked, did you not?
Yes, I did. And I really thought it was an interesting sound, and so I was like, maybe I should listen to Taylor Swift, and did not for 8 years. But then like coming to it and listening to it on purpose, I liked it less on purpose than I liked it in the background at summer camp. Like it was more fun not paying attention to it.
I would argue that's a lot of pop music though. It's like it's fun to like hang out with.
That's a fair point.
But if you're going to go to a song to have deeper meaning, I'm not going to a pop song. I'm going to go to a deeper meaning song that usually sits in like indie rock or like
but like pop can be so much more. Like
of course it
U2
can.
is a pop band. Like I mean they're rock, but like rock pop same difference, right?
No, not same difference. I'm saying she's giving us a fully completely pop album, and that is it goes hand in hand with the genre is what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
because
maybe I just don't like pop.
I would definitely argue that's your problem with this album is you don't like a straight pop.
Yeah, well, I do feel like the composition on some of these, the layering, the instrumentation, aside from some choices that I would disagree with, the sound is much bigger. And that makes me want bigger content. That makes me want bigger ideas, bigger poetry. And it feels like you're reading her diary, and her diary is filled with just relationships. Not that relationships are a small deal, but like there's no bigger idea, and it just falls flat for me because there's not. Like State of Grace from Red was so great because it was reaching like a U2 song for this transcendent meaning, and what does it mean to be loved, and what does that mean for humanity in the context that we live in. And this is just all men. And just
I'd argue just one man, but yes.
I kind of believe you about that. I think I know where you're going with that. And yeah, just one man. That kind of is like, I want more.
Man, see, this I think is our fundamental disagreement, where the album is about, in my opinion, which obviously I think is correct, about one man, Harry Styles, and I think that this is looking into her diary about a very specific relationship and time in her life that well and truly affected her for the rest of her discography. And what I think this album brings some value to is that she's laying out some images and lines that she's going to pull from in her future albums when she is still talking about this. She's still comparing other loves to this love. And I find that to be so interesting from like a psychology point of view, where it's like, what about this was so earth-shattering, so moving? This is
not her first relationship.
Not her first relationship by far.
Not her longest relationship.
Nope. And, you know, from the outside, a markedly, unremarkable relationship. It was about 3 months, give or take some change at the beginning of the year, just some guy in New York. But why was it so special to her? And I think that this is giving us a deeper dive into that. And while you're like, it's about just one guy, that's so boring, I'm like, but that's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when we look through history at the reasons songs are written, like we've got worship songs, whether you're an ancient Greek singing to Athena or Apollo, or a Christian hymn writer in the 19th century or after. So there's worship, there's drinking songs, there's songs about going to war or songs for the battlefield, there's songs to keep you in rhythm at work, and there's songs about women. So like the 5 W's, right? Worship, wine, work, war, women. I just made this up right now.
I was like, okay, like I see where you're going. I'd change women to love because women write songs about men, but
right. But like, you know, it's for the W's.
For the W's, we'll say women.
Yeah. But there's 4 other subject matters that we could have chosen from, and we get one, and there's just not a lot of range in that one on this album.
I'm just going to disagree with your basic 5 W's.
Okay.
Number 1, Bad Blood is about a friendship that went awry.
Oh, that's fair.
So there's friendship.
I accept that. But okay, can we look at the lyrics for Bad Blood? Because I think it's a really good example of my problems with this album.
Okay. I'll give some background to this first before we go into it. So Bad Blood is about Taylor's relationship, her friendship with Katy Perry. Big name in the industry. I'm telling you this.
Yeah, I have heard of Katy Perry.
Great. And they were really, really good friends. And then what had happened was they were both going to be touring, and Taylor had signed on some great dancers. And apparently Katy Perry somehow finagled them out from Taylor Swift and brought them onto her own tour. She stole her talent, and that was a big deal. I mean, you can imagine if you're trying to plan for a huge production that is a tour, world tour, and then having those talents immediately leave and your friend was the one who stole them from you could be pretty, a gut wrench, especially if you're pretty close at the time. Now, I don't love this song. It's actually one of my least favorite of Taylor Swift songs because it feels really vengeful, which is a different flavor than we see from her usually. But that is some background on it.
Yeah, even the song Better Than Revenge, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, right? It's kind of a caricature.
Yeah.
And this one, it does feel sincere.
Yeah.
I think especially in the lines that don't really fit right in the puzzle piece of that friendship context.
Like which lines?
It used to be mad love. Like that sounds like it's a romantic thing. Not, friendship has its own kind of love, but like that specifically, especially with the Cheshire Cat imagery from Wonderland,
which is a bonus track.
Yeah.
Fun fact, this album also has 13 tracks.
13 tracks.
Just so we're clear. She's sticking with her own themes here.
It feels sincerely vengeful and also lyrically weak because there's just a lack of strong verbiage. Now we got problems, and I don't think we can solve them. Like,
it's not a strong
is
rhyme.
that like a math problem? Is that like there's a spill on aisle 7, we need a mop stat? Like, that's a problem. I can't solve that. I don't have a mop.
Oh my goodness.
Like, sounds so trivial.
Does it though? Because I feel like we have a problem. We disagree about 1989.
Yeah, but it's a deliberate understatement.
A problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but like
to solve a problem, you think is an understatement?
No, I mean in the context of a relationship that has been broken in the way that the story of this song has a broken friendship. Like, if you came to me and you were like, I had this boyfriend, but we had problems. Like, that's a deliberate understatement for humorous effect. And it's like problems.
Yeah.
That's indicating much more than a small problem. Because like a problem is something that can be solved. Like that's kind of in the concept of a problem. So saying, I have a problem and I don't think we can solve them.
I think that, here's my take on that, is that what happened was a problem. This was a situation, right? She had dancers that were semi-stolen or stolen over to her. That's a problem from your friend. That could have been solved. But now, since it's not being addressed, and even in the bridge it's saying like, Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes. You say sorry just for show. So the saying sorry just for show is a bigger deal. Yeah. Now it's a big problem because now you're just, you're saying sorry for show. So I think the problem was smaller and then it got bigger.
Yeah. And I think that's reality, right? That conveys the reality of wounded relationships. But just the words that she uses to communicate that are kind of trivializing. Bullet holes, okay, that's a serious deal. Band-Aids. I know she says Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes, but using the word Band-Aids means that's what's in your head. And so like that's...
Well, she's saying that something, it's a big enough problem that something so small and trivial couldn't fix what is actually happening, which is deep damage. Still got scars on my back from your knife. I feel like that's
one of the stronger lines in the song.
A strong line.
Yeah. But say sorry just for show. Say sorry is a very elementary way of conveying what's going on in an apology or asking for forgiveness. Like I tell my toddler to say sorry. She understands that.
That's the point. She's saying when you say sorry, that's just for show instead of a deeper apology.
Yeah. But I'm saying she's opting for the simplistic images when the content, if she really wanted to convey the heartbreak in a way that would break our hearts listening to it, she needs some stronger verbiage.
We're going to have to disagree about Bad Blood. I never thought that I would be defending Bad Blood as a song, to be clear.
And again, this is another song that I heard in the background at summer camp and was like, kind of a groove.
Well, I think because it's catchy.
It is catchy.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of the songs on this album. They're quite catchy. So even if it's like not for you, strong enough lyrically, the idea is to be catchy. It's her pop album.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the pre-chorus. Oh, it's so sad to think about the good times, you and I. So sad. So sad.
Yeah, that one's fair. I'll give you that one.
It's pretty glib.
Yeah.
Glib is the word that I would use for this song.
It's pretty glib. Okay, let's talk about Blank Space.
Okay. I enjoyed the music video for this one.
It's a fun music video a lot.
Yes.
Wow, that's not English. I like it a lot. It's a fun music video.
Yes.
That's where my brain was going.
Accurate.
Yes.
And I think the music video brings out what she meant to convey in the song.
Mm-hmm.
That I gather was kind of misunderstood at large, that this was her writing from the persona that she feels she has been portrayed with by the press.
That's my interpretation. I think that's also your friend's interpretation, right? The one who wrote that article about it being similar to Dante's Inferno, where Taylor Swift is a character in this song, but Taylor Swift, the author, is different from her. So I do really enjoy that. I think this is definitely her own commentary about like how the media portrays her to be a serial dater. And I'll never forget her stabbing the cake with a butcher knife, mascara running down her face.
It's so funny. And you can tell she's just hamming it up and having a great time.
Yes.
Which is winsome, It's fun. But she also pulls in more imagery. Obviously, it's a more visual medium, but we can think of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. She has this portrait of the boyfriend that is being ripped to shreds, and I think it's implied that that's kind of what's happening to her, as in her reputation is getting one treatment when she in reality is something different.
Interesting that you say that, considering the next album is called Reputation. And there will be a lot of commentary on that idea that you've just explained.
I did that foreshadowing on purpose.
You did. I
did not.
Right.
Cool. But there's also, it has the same sort of tone as this poem called My Last Duchess. I'm going to look it up right now so I can tell you who wrote it. I remember this from high school by Robert Browning, My Last Duchess. When I was in high school, when we were in high school.
Yes.
Our school had a poetry contest where everybody in the school would memorize a classic poem and then have to recite/perform this poem.
I have some real beef that I wasn't allowed to perform Sarah Cynthia Sylvia Stout Will Not Take the Garbage Out by Silverstein.
Yeah,
Shel Silverstein.
That is truly a classic. But
Never forget.
What's the phrase? Hit F to pay respects.
Yeah.
F. But one of our classmates performed this poem and was like, but I feel like it's kind of creepy. And our teacher said, yes, that is in fact the point. So My Last Duchess by Robert Browning is a duke showing a guest around his estate and pointing to the duchess, the portrait of the duchess, who has just died. And he's like, yeah, she was all right. She didn't really appreciate me. Yeah.
Oh no.
A heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Search was all one, my favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace. All and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least.
So she likes things.
She likes things.
She really enjoys life, and this
so
man
annoying.
is so annoyed by that. I'm like, I would have been friends with her. You're so rude.
Yeah, but again, she's not named to my recollection in the poem. It's just My Last Duchess, which is totally the same tone as Blank Space, that it doesn't really matter what their name is.
Yeah, I got a blank space.
Yeah.
I'll write your name there.
It's like, I need a duchess, some gal. I need a boyfriend, some guy. I'll write your name in the blank space, sure. So same vibes.
But of course she's doing this to be drawing attention to the fact that like, oh, this is how they characterize me in the media.
Right.
Doesn't matter who it is, just some guy on my arm. La la. But she has tons of fun with that imagery in the music video. I think her most winsome music videos are ones, well, in this era and previous. I would think in Reputation and later we'll start to get some better music videos. Unfortunately, I love Taylor. I don't think music videos have always been her strongest suit, but the best ones are the ones where she's hamming it up and having a good time, like in Blank Space and Shake It Off, which I think you also appreciated.
Yeah. Shake It Off was a fun idea. I also liked the one from, was it her first album, where she plays the oboe.
Oh,
and
she won
she's the
an
science
award
girl.
for it.
No, she didn't win she won the award for Love Story, right? But it wasn't Love Story.
No. She won the award for What You're Talking About.
Oh.
Hold on. I'm forgetting the name and I can't be doing
Short
that.
skirts, t-shirt, cheer captain, bleachers.
Yes.
You belong with me.
Thank
There
you.
it is.
I'm embarrassed as a Swiftie that it didn't immediately come to mind. You said Love Story and I was like, it's not that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one where she got interrupted by Kanye. She was winning the award for that music video.
Okay. I totally thought it was for Love Story.
Nah, you did last time too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Look at me doubling down on the same mistakes.
I mean, Love Story.
I'm like Taylor Swift in relationships. Hey.
Oof. Brutal.
Sorry, that was a low blow.
It was a low blow, but it's okay. We can move on. Okay. So some other standouts for me on the album are Wildest Dreams. I really enjoy the song. I like that her heartbeat is what you hear recorded. It's what intros the song and what the beat is based off of. I do enjoy the music video. Is it a lot of, side like longing glances and such? Yes. But also I love that it's kind of set in the 40s. Or is it the 40s?
50s kind of.
Even earlier. It's kind of like a film
Hollywood.
noir.
It feels like Singing in the Rain, where they're like on a movie set and they're having a faux romance, but then the faux romance becomes real on the movie set. I like movies about movies.
It's giving
Singing
King Kong.
And,
it's New York in
King
that
Kong,
time period.
King Kong and Hail Caesar.
Yeah.
I guess that's West Coast, but I love Hail Caesar. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Oh my goodness, we should watch it.
Okay, we'll add it.
Hysterical. It's quietly hysterical, which is my favorite kind.
Quietly hysterical. Perfect. You didn't like this song though.
I didn't like this song. Again,
Tell me why. Tell me why.
There's not a lot of melody.
I just fully disagree. Of course it has a melody. It's a song. I would sing it, but we've said we won't, even though I just sang a little thing earlier.
It's just not an interesting melody to me. I mean, it's not my least favorite song on the album. I will give you that. Okay. There's also a thing that she does in this song that she does on a lot of songs in this album where the emphasis is on the wrong syllable of the word, which just makes me cringe every time.
Tell the good people what you mean by that. Give the example.
The example is, say you'll see me again. Now, when I say that, like I'm reading lyrics, I say you'll see me again. Emphasis in again is on the second syllable. It's louder and it's stronger than the first syllable. But in the song, it's say you'll see me again, which is weird.
I just literally in my whole life would never, ever, and I've listened to this album so many times, I would never have picked that out as something.
It grates on me so much. And it's not just a Taylor Swift thing. Like there are hymns that I sing in church where the emphasis is on the sus of Jesus, and it drives me nuts. I hate it.
Such a specific thing to you.
But it's, if you're thinking about music has beats, right? Strong beats and weak beats, and you can mess with that with syncopation. But then if you're writing words to go with the song, with the music, you have the same thing to deal with. And it's like, why don't we just line those up and then the song flows really naturally?
Well, I will say the note is higher on the There's a higher note than again. So it's going along with that. It's not just purely emphasis. I mean, it is emphasized more, but the note is going higher. So yeah, it adds to, she's giving me eyes. You guys can't see this. She's giving me eyes like you have no idea about the English language.
No, it's just, it gives me like physical pain when this
it's because you're an English teacher. That's what it is.
Could be correct, but this sort of thing bothered me way before I became an English teacher.
Okay, but riddle me this, okay? Mm-hmm. So and you have said that she's a good poet, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Those words have come out of your mouth. We have the recording. Mm-hmm. And our same teacher has told us before that great poets know the rules of poetry and then are able to break them knowingly. And sometimes that works. Shakespeare.
And sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
Like,
hold on. Shakespeare himself made up words.
Yeah.
He made up actual words that didn't exist and turns of phrase that didn't mean anything.
I fully acknowledge this.
I'm just saying it's not as terrible an English sin as you present it to be.
It's not that this negates the entire possibility of her writing good poetry. It's that this is not an example of good poetry, to my mind.
I'm going to cry.
Usually it's called a wrenched rhyme, and it often really works in a humorous context. Because it's like, didn't go where you expected.
The relationship didn't go where she expected.
That's a bit of a reach.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I think this whole point is a bit of a reach. So that's where I'm going with it.
Sure.
So you guys, this really is the most tense we have ever been in anything. Okay, so something else that I think we can move on to for this album is the hidden messages in the liner notes. I feel like this album, at first glance, it's kind of hard to find a storyline, but she gives it really glaringly in the hidden messages, starting even with Welcome to New York. The hidden messages, we begin our story in New York. Then it goes, there was once a girl known by everyone and no one, which is blank space. 3 is style. Her heart belonged to someone who couldn't stay, referencing, of course,
Harry Styles.
And then they loved each other recklessly for Out of the Woods. They paid the price. All you had to do was stay. She danced to forget him.
Interesting thing is that the track 5 is All You Had to Do Was Stay, which is not a pensive feeling song. I think it's not an especially poignant song.
Yeah. I would say that's a weaker track 5 for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, I've been defending this pretty hard. It is not my favorite of her albums. I will say that. I do think that this album is a bit overproduced for my taste.
Mm-hmm. The high harmonies in All You Had to Do Was Stay, they're not even harmonies. The echo, it's just obnoxious to me. Like, I know I'm going pretty hard at this, but like, it does grate on me in a way that makes it actively unpleasant.
Oof. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I don't think it's actively unpleasant, but I will allow you your opinion. But continuing with liner notes. Okay, so All You Had to Do Was Stay is they paid the price, and then afterwards she danced to forget him for Shake It Off. He drove past her street each night.
Is that a Hotel California reference? Some dance to remember, some dance to forget.
Possibly. If it allows you some deeper meaning, then sure. Bad blood, she made friends and enemies. Wildest dreams, he only saw her in his dreams. How you get the girl, then one day he came back. This love, timing is a funny thing. I know places is, and everyone was watching. And clean is she lost him, but she found herself, and somehow that was everything. So
isn't that in the music video for
Clean?
No.
I was like, I don't think there's one.
Out of the Woods.
Yeah, at the beginning, okay. I think it is. She says that it's like an over, what do they call that? Voiceover.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or as a text at the end of the video.
One of those. It's one of those. Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that's really interesting about the album altogether is like whether you like it or not, it's very cohesive musically. I think they all sound like they go together very well. So each of the songs are referencing each other. It's pretty clear that the imagery is meant to go together about one person.
Even Mad Love, which shows up in Bad Blood, like it's relating it back to blank space and other things.
Even the word mad.
The repetition does help to hold it together lyrically.
Yeah. Even the word mad is a British term for crazy. Which,
right.
You know, Harry Styles is British.
As I learned.
So, yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And I think there's lots of Easter eggs as well. I Know Places is lyrically about a fox hunt. You know, the lovers are foxes being chased by hunters, and Swifties can go and find pictures online of Taylor Swift wearing a cute little fox sweater in the middle of Central Park with Harry Styles. There's mention of her wearing paper airplanes flying and her wearing his necklace.
And that shows up in multiple music videos as well.
Yeah. And she's also seen in real life wearing his paper airplane necklace. So just lots of little not so subtle drops like this is about him. This relationship really affected me.
I do like Clean as a song.
It's my favorite on the album.
I think it's a really good example of using a word in multiple senses. Where she's getting washed clean by the rain, but she's also trying to get clean from him like he's a drug. So clean and sober makes an appearance as a phrase.
Towards the end.
Yeah. And yeah, I think in the story of the album, it does have to go last. But it probably musically would have been the track 5.
I agree with that, and I think that must have been a very intentional decision, because I do think it has to come last. For she's moving on from this relationship and getting clean. The rain was pouring down when I was drowning, that's when I could finally breathe, and by morning gone was any trace of you, I think I'm finally clean. I love the use of water, rain being connected with purity and cleanliness. I think is a beautiful image that she's putting together in this. Also, you're still all over me like a wine-stained dress I can't wear anymore. That's in verse 1. She's connecting this relationship with Red again, and our listeners will remember Harry Styles was a subject matter of Red, at least in some songs, and was associated with that color as like a wild, maybe not so good for you love, and that's what she associates with the color red. She's bringing that back here with Wine Stained Dress, and in future albums, specifically on Midnight, I fully believe that the song Maroon is about him, and she mentions wine again in that song. So she's still trailing this idea, this color with that idea, which I think is interesting too.
Now that said, I do think this song showcases one of my other pet peeves on this album, which is the nonverbal vocalizations. They're just everywhere. And I do feel like I'm probably more sensitive to this than other people, where like if a singer says yeah in a song, I will notice and I will say yeah.
I'd have to agree. I think in the most loving way, I think you're more sensitive about this album than most people are. I say that because she won a Grammy for album of the year for this album. So, and it spent 5 non-consecutive weeks at number 1. It did very well.
So you're telling me that other people disagree with me? You're not telling me that I'm wrong.
I'm subtly trying to tell you that you're wrong. I can say it overtly.
You're telling me to take a hint.
I'm telling you that you're wrong. No. Just that these things are not...
These things don't bother everybody the way they bother me.
Correct. Not that they are incorrect in their telling, but they're not what severely bother most people. What else can we say about this album so that we don't fight the whole time?
Oh, I will say the New Romantics, the bonus track, has probably the best rhythm escalation of any of these songs. I feel like it really builds as a song really well. And I will say that my notes for You Are in Love, in contrast to other tracks I could name, it says bridge good.
Bridge good. That is my favorite of your notes about this album. I will say, I think a lot of her really like the songs that performed the best and were like the bops that people remember happen much earlier in the album, and my favorites of her songs come later in the album, and some of them are the bonus tracks, including You Are in Love, New Romantics, and Wonderland. And I think Wonderland is very cute.
Yeah.
I love that she's using Alice in Wonderland themes, especially because it makes sense. Harry Styles is from Cheshire, England, and she compares him to a Cheshire cat, his Cheshire smile, his green eyes. It's adorable.
Yeah, it's pretty cute. Oh, we didn't talk about the music video that you sent me that's her performing Out of the Woods on the piano.
Oh, talk about it.
I feel like this is just going to be doubling down on what I said before. But like the acoustic version of Out of the Woods, she's playing it on the piano, and it's just piano and vocals. And I feel like the song doesn't hold together. Like, I think in her composition of it, she was relying on the orchestra, whether or not it's like a string orchestra. I mean, like the
production,
the production of it. She needed the other layers to it for it to hold together. And kind of as you see her performing it in the video, like her whole body is getting involved and like she's getting into it, but it's like way more than she actually has musically going on. And I feel like she's listening to it in her head and hearing all the parts that the song really needs, and all we get is the piano and the vocals, and it's not...
Once again, I disagree with you about that. I really like the stripped down version of it, and mostly because I think the production is my least favorite part of the album. And so when she strips it down, you can really tell, especially in that performance, that her vocals are strong.
Yeah, there was for sure a lot of reverb on that mic. Just saying.
Sure.
I'm not saying she's a bad singer. She's a good singer.
Yeah. I thought it was one of the better performances of that song. But, agree to disagree about chocolate cake or red velvet cake.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's suitable.
That's
red
the
velvet
one.
Cake.
Yeah. Well, we are out of time. We will agree to disagree. But next week, we have even more of a challenge. I am scared. I don't even want to get a rating on this album from you. I think it's a 0 out of 10.
I would give it a 3 or 4.
I'm going to go home and cry. Next week we have, or 2 weeks from now, we have Reputation, which as you may have noticed, she releases albums every 2 years, or she has from the beginning of her career. Okay. It's very like on the dot. You know, we had 2008, 2010, 2012, 2014. The next one is 2017, Reputation.
Oh, so she kept you waiting for a year.
She left the public eye.
Good for her.
We will get into reasons why, and I'm scared for your opinion of that album, but I'm excited to talk about it with you. But we have lots of people to thank.
Yes, we do. Big thank you to Joseph, our editor, Rebecca, our media manager, Talitha, our design lead, and thank you for listening.
This has been a DieCast Media Group production. Also, if you feel like you'd love to support us in our ventures here, we will include the link to our Patreon in the show notes.
And you can email us if you want. If you want to tell me how wrong I am.
Or me how wrong I am.
Email us at makemeaswiftie@diecastmediagroup.com. And that's a mouthful, so it'll also be in the show notes.
Yes. Please weigh in. We actually want to know your opinions about this, especially since we've been so divided on this one.
Yeah. Come in and break our tie here.
Break our tie. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next week or 2 weeks from now.
See you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.